Greetings. Welcome to Grinnell Community Theatre's production of All Sleeping on the Hill, a selection of monologues from Spoon River Anthology by Edgar Lee Masters. I'm Janet Carl and I directed the production. I'm so glad you joined us virtually. These are poems. In the original anthology, Masters wrote over 200 of them. I've whittled those down to a much smaller number. These are free verse poems. They might be thought of as epitaphs on the gravestones of the residents of the cemetery in the fictional town of Spoon River. Though Masters did live in a little town on Spoon River in southern Illinois named Lewiston. Some writers think that he drew not only the names of some or most of his characters, but perhaps the stories or rumors about those people for his own characterizations. In any case, it became a bestseller internationally in 1915. Over those 4 years, it sold 80,000 copies, which did make it quite a hit for a book of poetry. And it was critically praised by other poets like Carl Sandburg and Ezra Pound, who lauded it. It's been a delightful adventure working with a cast one-to-one, working from our own homes, safely distanced, to talk together about the characters and what they were saying about themselves, what other characters were saying about them, and then to draw on Zoom technology to bring it all together and bring it to you. So I thank my wonderful cast of very talented actors who include not only people from the Grinnell area, but people from across the country as well. And I especially want to thank my technical support and leaders, Kent McClellan and Bella Kugel, without whom this would not be a production. I also want to thank Monica St. Angelo and Alicia Lacina from the Grinnell Area Arts Council and Grinnell College for its financial support of this production. So now step back with me in time, if you will, to walk in the cemetery of the village of Spoon River.
The tender heart, the simple soul, the loud, the proud, the happy one.
All are sleeping on the hill.
One died in shameful childbirth, one of a thwarted love, one at the hands of a brute in a brothel, one of a broken pride in the search for heart's desire. One after life in faraway London and Paris was brought to her little space by Ella and Kate and Mag.
All are sleeping on the hill.
Where are Uncle Isaac and Aunt Emily, and old Townie Kincaid and Savigny Houghton and Major Walker, who had talked with venerable men of the Revolution?
All are sleeping on the hill.
They brought them dead sons from the war, and daughters whom life had crushed, and their children fatherless, crying.
All are sleeping on the hill.
Where is old Fiddler Jones, who played with life all his 90 years, braving the sleet with bared breast, drinking, rioting, thinking neither of wife nor kin, nor gold, nor love, nor heaven? Lo, he babbles of the fish fries of long ago, of the horse races of long ago at Clary's Grove, of what Abe Lincoln said one time at Springfield.
Have you seen, walking through the village, a man with downcast eyes and haggard face, That is my husband, who by secret cruelty never to be told, robbed me of my youth and my beauty. Till at last, wrinkled and with yellow teeth, and with broken pride and shameful humility, I sank into the grave. But what, think you, gnaws at my husband's heart? The face of what I was, the face of what he made me. These are dragging him to the place where I lie. In death, therefore, I am avenged.
She took my strength by minutes. She took my life by hours. She drained me like a fevered moon that saps the spinning world. The days went by like shadows. The minutes wheeled like stars. She took the pity from my heart and made it into smiles. She was a hunk of sculptor's clay. My secret thoughts were fingers. They flew behind her pensive cheeks and drooped the eye with sorrow. My soul had entered in the clay, fighting like 7 devils. It was not mine. It was not hers. She held it, but its struggles modeled a face she hated and a face I feared to see. I beat the windows, shook the bolts, I hid me in a corner. And then she died and haunted me for life.
In life, I was the town drunkard. When I died, the priest refused me burial in holy ground, the which redounded to my good fortune. For the Protestants bought this lot and buried my body here, close to the grave of the banker Nicholas and of his wife Priscilla. Take note, ye prudent and pious souls, of the cross currents in life which bring honor to the dead who lived in shame.
How does it happen, tell me, that I, who's the most erudite of lawyers, who knew Blackstone and Coke almost by heart, who made the greatest speech the courthouse has ever heard, and wrote a brief that won the praise of Justice Breeze, how does it happen that I lie here unmarked, forgotten, while Chase Henry, the town drunkard, is a marble block, topped by an urn? Oh, wherein nature, in a mood ironical, has sown a flowering weed.
Together in this grave lie Benjamin Pantier, attorney at law, and Beau, his dog, constant companion, solace, and friend. Down the gray road, friends, children, men and women, passing one by one out of life, left me till I was alone with Beau for partner, bedfellow, companion in drink. In the morning of life, I knew aspiration and saw glory. And then she, who survives me, snared my soul with a snare which bled me to death, till I, once strong of will, lay broken, indifferent, living with Beau in a back room of a dingy office. Under my jawbone is snuggled the bony nose of Beau, our story lost in silence. Go by, mad world.
I know that he told that I snared his soul with the snare which bled him to death. And all the men loved him, and most of the women pitied him. But suppose you really are a woman and have delicate tastes and loathe the smell of whiskey and onions, and the rhythm of Wordsworth's ode runs in your ears while he goes about from morning till night repeating bits of the common thing. Oh, should the spirit of mortal be proud. And suppose you are a woman well endowed, and the only man with whom the law and morality permits you to have the marital relation is the very man that fills you with disgust every time you think of it, while you think of it every time you see him. That's why I sent him away, to live with his dog in a dingy room back of his office.
Where is my boy? My boy, in what far part of the world? The boy I loved best of all in the school. I, the teacher, the old maid, the virgin heart, who made them all my children. Did I know my boy aright, thinking of him as a flame, a spirit, active, ever aspiring? Oh, boy, boy, for whom I prayed in many a watchful hour at night. Do you remember the letter I wrote you of the beautiful life of Christ, and whether you ever took it or not? My boy, wherever you are, work for your soul's sake, that all the clay of you, all the dross of you, may yield to the fire of you, till the fire is nothing but light, nothing but light.
Well, Emily Sparks, your prayers were not wasted. Your love was not all in vain. I owe whatever I was to your hope that would not give me up, to your love that saw me still as good. Dear Emily Sparks, let me tell you the story. I passed through the effect of my father and mother. The milliner's daughter made me trouble. And out I went in the world, where I passed through every peril known of wine and women and joy of life. And one night, in a room in the Rue de Rivoli, I was drinking wine with a black-eyed cocotte. And the tears swam into my eyes. And she thought they amorous tears and smiled for thought of her conquest over me, but my soul was 3,000 miles away. In the days when you taught me in Spoon River. And just because you no more could love me, nor pray for me, nor write me letters, the eternal silence of you spoke instead. And the black-eyed cocotte took the tears for hers, as well as the deceiving kisses I gave her. Somehow, from that hour, I had a new vision, dear Emily Sparks.
When Reuben Pantier ran away and threw me, I went to Springfield. There I met a lush whose father, just deceased, left him a fortune. He married me when drunk. My life was wretched. A year passed, and one day they found him dead. That made me rich. I moved to Chicago, and after a time met Tyler Roundtree, villain. I moved on to New York. A gray-haired magnate went mad about me. So, another fortune. He died one night right in my arms, you know. I saw his purple face for years thereafter. There was almost a scandal. I moved on, this time to Paris. I was now a woman, insidious, subtle, versed in the world, and rich. My sweet apartment near the Champs-Élysées became a center for all sorts of people. Musicians, poets, dandies, artists, nobles, where we spoke French and German, Italian, English. I married Count Navigato, native of Genoa. We went to Rome. He poisoned me, I think. Now, in the Campo Santo overlooking the sea, where young Columbus dreamed new worlds, see what they chiseled. Contessa Navigato implora eterna quiete.
Only the chemist can tell, and not always the chemist, what will result from compounding fluids and solids. And who can tell how men and women will interact on each other, or what children will result? There were Benjamin Pantier and his wife, good in themselves, but evil toward each other. He oxygen, she hydrogen, their son a devastating fire. I, Trainer the druggist, a miser of chemicals, killed while making an experiment, lived unwedded.
You would not believe, would you, that I came from good Welsh stock, that I was purer blooded than the white trash here, and a more direct lineage than the New Englanders and the Virginians of Spoon River. You would not believe I'd been to school and read some books. You saw me only as a rundown man with matted hair and beard, and ragged clothes. Sometimes a man's life turns into a cancer from being bruised and continually bruised, swells into a purplish mass like a growth on stalks of corn. Here was I, a carpenter, mired in a bog of life, into which I walked thinking it was a meadow, with a slattern for a wife, and poor Minerva, my daughter, whom you tormented and drove to death. So I crept like a snail through the days of my life. No more you hear my footsteps in the morning resounding on the hollow sidewalk, going to the grocery store for a little cornmeal and a nickel's worth of bacon.
I am Minerva, the village poetess, hooted at, jeered at by the yahoos of the street for my heavy body, cock eye, and rolling walk. All the more so after Butch Weldy captured me after a brutal hunt. He left me to my fate with Dr. Myers, and I sank into death, growing numb from the feet up like one stepping deeper and deeper into a stream of ice. Will someone go to the village newspaper and collect the verses I wrote into a book? I thirsted so for love. I hungered so for life.
No other man, unless it was Doc Hill, did more for people than I. And all the weak, the halt, the improvident, and those who could not pay flocked to me. I was good-hearted. Easy, Dr. Myers. I was healthy, happy, in comfortable fortune, blessed with a congenial mate, my children raised, all wedded, doing well in the world. And then one night, Minerva the poetess came to me in her trouble, crying. I tried to help her out. She died. They indicted me. The newspapers disgraced me. My wife perished of a broken heart. And pneumonia finished me.
He protested all his life long. The newspapers lied about him villainously, that he was not at fault for Minerva's fall, but only tried to help her. Poor soul, so sunk in sin, he could not see that even trying to help her, as he called it, he had broken the law, human and divine. Passers-by, an admonition to you. If you want your ways to be ways of pleasantness and your pathways peace, love God and keep his commandments.
I was the first fruits of the Battle of Mission Ridge. When I felt the bullet enter my heart, I wished I'd stayed at home and gone to jail for stealing the hogs of Curl Trenery instead of running away and joining the army. Rather 1,000 times the county jail than to lie here under this marble figure with wings and this granite pedestal bearing the words pro patria. What do they mean anyway?
Note Holheimer ran away to the war the day before Curl Trenery swore out a warrant through Justice Arnett for stealing hogs. But that's not the reason he turned a soldier. He caught me running with Lucius Atherton. We quarreled, and I told him never again to cross my path. Then he stole the hogs and went to war. Back of every soldier, there's a woman.
When my mustache curled and my hair was black, and I wore tight trousers and a diamond stud, I was an excellent knave of hearts and turned many a trick. But when the gray hairs began to appear, lo, a new generation of girls laughed at me, not fearing me, and I had no more exciting adventures wherein I was almost shot for a heartless devil. But only drabby affairs, warmed over affairs of other times and other men. And time went on until I lived at Mayor's Restaurant, partaking of short orders, gray, untidy, toothless, discarded rural Don Juan. There is a mighty shade here who sings of one named Beatrice. And I see now that the force that made him great drove me to the dregs.
I would have been as great as George Eliot, but for an untoward fate. For look at the photograph of me made by Penny Witt, chin resting on hand and deep set eyes, gray too and far searching. But there was the old problem. Should it be celibacy, matrimony, or unchastity? Then John Slack, the rich druggist, wooed me, luring me with the promise of leisure for my novel. And I married him, giving birth to 8 children, and had no time to write. It was all over with me anyway when I ran the needle through my hand while washing the baby's things and died of lockjaw, an ironical death. Hear me, ambitious souls. Sex is the curse of life.
I was sick. But more than that, I was mad at the crooked police and the crooked game of life. So I wrote to the chief of police at Peoria. I am here in my girlhood home in Spoon River, gradually wasting away. But come and take me. I killed the son of the merchant priest in Madame Lou's, and the paper said he killed himself in his home while cleaning a hunting gun. Lied like the devil to hush up the scandal for the bribe of advertising. In my room, I shot him at Madame Lou's because he knocked me down when I said that in spite of all the money he had, I'd see my lover that night.
She loved me. Oh, how she loved me. I never had a chance to escape from the day she first saw me. But then, after we were married, I thought, well, she might prove her mortality and let me out. Or she might divorce me. But then again, if you die, none resign. And I ran away and was gone for a year on a lark. She never complained. She said all would be well, that I would return. And I did. I told her that while taking a row in a boat, I had been captured near Van Buren Street by pirates on Lake Michigan and kept in chains so I could not write her. She cried and kissed me and said it was cruel, outrageous, inhuman. I then concluded our marriage was a divine dispensation and could not be dissolved except by death. I was right.
He ran away and was gone for a year. When he came home, he told me the silly story of being kidnapped by pirates on Lake Michigan and kept in chains so that he could not write me. I pretended to believe him, though I knew very well what he was doing, and that he was meeting the milliner, Miss Williams, now and then when she went into the city to buy goods, as she said. But a promise is a promise, and a marriage is a marriage. And out of respect for my own character, I refused to be drawn into a divorce by the scheme of a husband who had merely grown tired of his marital vow and duty.
I was the only child of Francis Harris of Virginia and Thomas Green of Kentucky, of honorable and valiant blood both. To them I owe all that I became: judge, member of Congress, leader in the state. From my mother I inherited vivacity, fancy, language. From my father, will, judgment, logic. All honor to them for what service I was to the people.
I was a peasant girl from Germany, blue-eyed, rosy, happy, and strong. And the first place I worked was at Thomas Green's. On a summer's day, when she was away, he stole into the kitchen and took me in his arms and kissed me on my throat, I turning my head. Then neither of us seemed to know what happened, and I cried for what would become of me, and cried as my secret began to show. One day, Mrs. Green told me she understood and would make no trouble for me, and being childless, would adopt it. He had given her a farm to be still. So she hid in the house and sent out rumors as if it would happen to her. All went well, and the child was born. They were so kind to me. Later, I married Gus Wertman, and years passed, but at political rallies, and sitters by thought I was crying at the eloquence of Hamilton Green. That was not it. No, I wanted to say, that's my son. That's my son.
My name used to be in the papers daily as having dined somewhere, or traveled somewhere, or rented a house in Paris where I entertained the nobility. I was forever eating or traveling or taking the cure at Baden-Baden. Now I'm here to do honor to Spoon River, here beside the family whence I sprang. No one cares now where I dined, or lived, or whom I entertained, or how often I took the cure at Baden-Baden.
I wanted to go away to college, but rich Aunt Persis wouldn't help me. So I made gardens and raked the lawns and bought John Alden's books with my earnings and toiled for the very means of life. I wanted to marry Delia Prickett, but how could I with what I earned? And there was Aunt Persis, more than 70, who sat in a wheelchair, half alive, with her throat so paralyzed, when she swallowed, the soup ran out of her mouth like a duck. A gourmand yet, investing her income in mortgages, fretting all the time about her notes and rents and papers. That day I was sawing wood for her and reading Proudhon in between. I went in the house for a drink of water, and there she sat asleep in her chair, and Proudhon lying on the table, and a bottle of chloroform on the book. She used sometimes for an aching tooth. I poured the chloroform on a handkerchief and held it to her nose till she died. Oh, Delia, Delia, you and Proudhon steadied my hand, and the coroner said she died of heart failure. I married Delia, got the money. Joke's on you, Spoon River.
I, born in Weimar of a mother who was French and a German father, a most learned professor, orphaned at 14 years, became a dancer known as Russian Sonia, all up and down the boulevards of Paris. Mistress betimes of various dukes and counts, and later of poor artists and poets. At 40 years passé, I sought New York and met old Patrick Hummer on the boat, red-faced and hailed, though turned his 60th year, returning after having sold a shipload of cattle in the German city of Hamburg. He brought me to Spoon River, and we lived here for 20 years. They thought we were married. This old oak tree has become the favorite haunt of blue jays, chattering all the day. And why not? For my very dust is laughing for thinking of this humorous thing called life.
How many times during the 20 years I was your leader, friends of Spoon River, did you neglect the convention and caucus and leave the burden on my hands of guarding and saving the people's cause? Sometimes because you were ill, or your grandmother was ill, or you drank too much and fell asleep. Or else you said, he is our leader. All will be well. He fights for us. We have nothing to do but follow. But oh, how you cursed me when I fell, and cursed me, saying I had betrayed you in leaving the caucus room for a moment when the people's enemies there assembled waited and watched for a chance to destroy the sacred rights of the people. You common rabble, I left the caucus to go to the urinal.
Nothing in life is alien to you. I was a penniless girl from Summum who stepped from the morning train in Spoon River. All the houses stood before me with closed doors and drawn shades. I was barred out. I had no place or part in any of them. And I walked past the Old Mcneely Mansion, a castle of stone mid walks and gardens, with workmen about the place on guard, and the county and state upholding it for its lordly owner, full of pride. I was so hungry, I had a vision. I saw a giant pair of scissors dip from the sky like the beam of a dredge and cut the house in two like a curtain. But at the commercial, I saw a man who winked at me as I asked for work. It was Wash McNeely's son. He proved the link in the chain of title to half my ownership of the mansion through a breach of promise suit, the scissors. So you see, the house, from the day I was born, was only waiting for me.
First, I suspected something. She acted so calm and absent-minded. And one day, I heard the back door shut as I entered the front, and I saw him slink back of the smokehouse into the lot and run across the field. And I meant to kill him on sight. But that day, walking near Fourth Bridge, without a stick or stone at hand, all of a sudden I saw him, standing scared to death, holding his rabbits. And all I could say was, don't, as he aimed and fired at my heart.
Silent before the jury, returning no word to the judge when he asked me if I had aught to say about the sentence. Only shaking my head. What could I say to people who thought that a woman of 35 was at fault when her lover of 19 kills her husband? Even though she had said to him over and over, "Go away, Elmer, go far away. I have maddened your brain with the gift of my body. You will do some terrible thing." And just as I feared, he killed my husband, with which I had nothing to do before God, silent for 30 years in prison. And the gates of Joliet swung open as the gray and silent trustees carried me out in a coffin.
What but the love of God could have softened and made forgiving the people of Spoon River toward me who who wronged the bed of Thomas Merritt and murdered him beside. Oh, loving hearts that took me in again when I returned from 14 years in prison. Oh, helping hands that in the church received me and heard with tears my penitent confession, who took the sacrament of bread and wine. Repent, ye living ones, and rest with Jesus.
We stand about this place, we, the memories, and shade our eyes because we dread to read June 18th, 1864, aged 21 years and 3 days. And all things are changed. And we, the memories, stand here for ourselves alone. For no eye marks us, or would know why we are here. Your husband is dead. Your sister lives far away. Your father is bent with age. He has forgotten you. He scarcely leaves the home anymore. No one remembers your exquisite face, your lyric voice, how you could sing, even on the morning you were stricken, with piercing sweetness, with thrilling sorrow, before the advent of the child, which died with you. It is all forgotten, save by us, the memories, who are forgotten by the world. All is changed, save the river and the hill. Even they are changed. Only the burning sun and the quiet stars are the same. And we, the memories, stand here in awe, our eyes closed with the weariness of tears, in immeasurable weariness.
I was just turned 21. And Henry Phipps, the Sunday school superintendent, made a speech in Bindle's Opera House. The honor of the flag must be upheld, he said, whether it be assailed by a barbarous tribe of Tagalogs or the greatest power in Europe. And we cheered and cheered the speech and the flag he waved as he spoke. And I went to the war in spite of my father and followed the flag till I saw it raised by our camp in a rice field near Manila. And all of us cheered and cheered. But there were flies and dangerous things. And there was the deadly water, and the cruel heat, the sickening putrid food, and the smell of the trench just behind the tent. Beastly acts between ourselves or alone. Bullying, hatred, degradation among us. And days of loathing and nights of fear. To the hour of the charge through the steaming swamp following the flag. Till I fell with a scream shot through the guts. Now there's a flag over me in Spoon River. A flag. A flag.
They got me into this Sunday school in Spoon River and tried to get me to give up Confucius for Jesus. I could have been no worse off if I had tried to get them to give up Jesus for Confucius. For without any warning, as if it were a prank, and sneaking up behind me, Harry Wiley, the minister's son, caved my ribs into my lungs with a blow of his fist. Now I shall never sleep with my ancestors in Peking, and no children shall worship at my grave.
Out of me, unworthy and unknown, the vibration of deathless music, with malice toward none and with charity for all. Out of me, the forgiveness of millions toward millions, and the beneficent face of a nation shining with justice and truth. I am Anne Rutledge, who sleep beneath these weeds, beloved in life of Abraham Lincoln, wedded to him, not through union, but through separation. Bloom forever, O Republic, from the dust of my bosom.
I wrote him a letter asking him for old time's sake to discharge my sick boy from the army, but maybe he couldn't read it. Then I went to town and had James Garber, who wrote beautifully, write him a letter, but maybe that was lost in the mails. So I traveled all the way to Washington. I was more than an hour finding the White House, and when I found it, they turned me away, hiding their smiles. Then I thought, oh, well, he ain't the same as when I boarded him, and he and my husband worked together, and all of us called him Abe there in Menard. As a last attempt, I turned to a guard and said, please say it's old Aunt Hannah Armstrong from Illinois, come to see him about her sick boy in the army. Well, just in a moment, they let me in. And when he saw me, he broke in a laugh and dropped his business as president and wrote in his own hand Doug's discharge, talking all the while of the early days and telling stories.
At first, you will know not what they mean. And you may never know, and we may never tell you. These sudden flashes in your soul, like lampant lightning on snowy clouds at midnight when the moon is full. They come in solitude, or perhaps you sit with your friend and all at once a silence falls on speech, and his eyes, without a flicker, glow at you. You two have seen the secret together. He sees it in you and you in him. And there you sit, thrilling, lest the mystery stand before you and strike you dead with a splendor like the sun's. Oh, be brave, all souls who have such visions. As your body's alive as mine is dead, you're catching a little whiff of the ether reserved for God himself.
At 4 o'clock in late October, I sat alone in the country schoolhouse, back from the road mid stricken fields, and an eddy of wind blew leaves on the pane and crooned in the flue of the cannon stove with its open door blurring the shadows with the spectral glow of a dying fire. In an idle mood, I was running the planchette. All at once, my wrist grew limp and my hands moved rapidly over the board till the name of Charles Guiteau was spelled, who threatened to materialize before me. Oh, I rose and fled from the room, bareheaded into the dusk, afraid of my gift. After that, the spirits swarmed: Chaucer, Caesar, Poe, Marlowe, Cleopatra, and Mrs. Surratt. Wherever I went, with messages. "Mere trifling twaddle," Spoon River agreed. "You talk nonsense to children, don't you?" And suppose I see what you never saw, and never heard of, and had no word for. I must talk nonsense when I tell you what it is I see.
The earth keeps some vibration going there in your heart, and that is you. And if people find you can fiddle, then fiddle you must for all your life. What do you see? A harvest of clover or a meadow to walk through to the river? The winds in the corn, you rub your hands for beeves hereafter, ready for market. Or else you hear the rustle of skirts like the girls when dancing at Little Grove. To Cooney Potter, a pillar of dust or whirling leaves meant ruinous drought. To me, they look like redhead Sammy stepping it off to Turalura. How could I till my 40 acres, not to speak of getting more, with a medley of horns and bassoons and piccolos stirred in my brain by crows and robins and the creak of a windmill, only these. I never started to plow in my life if someone did not stop in the road and take me away to a dance or a picnic. I ended up with 40 acres. I ended up with a broken fiddle and a broken laugh and 1,000 memories. Not one single regret.